people seem to kind of say that jhana on its own does not give you that sort of wisdom, and you cannot by simply understanding jhana can attain nibbana. But if you look deeply, jhana on its own, if somebody has experienced jhana by letting go of unwholesome and developing wholesome, immediately by that fact one would see the nature of Four Noble Truth embedded within the jhana. Yeah. So one can enter jhana by letting go of those unwholesome, and that those unwholesome states are the source of suffering, and the source of suffering is actually our some sort of reaction to those sort of states, on be it a wholesome state or be it unwholesome state. And those sort of reactions that come into three flavors. They can be called greed, hatred, and delusion. So you can arrive at the jhana, and while entering the jhana and while seeing the impermanent nature of jhana, one can develop that sort of understanding that will give the glimpse of nibbana, or the glimpse of Four Noble Truth. Because jhana arises as soon as you let go of any sort of personalization and any sort of reaction to those hindrances. So that's the kind of the suffering and the source of suffering. And as soon as you let go of those sort of reaction to those sort of unwholesome states, you will arrive at those state of cessation of suffering, because you can see that the happiness, the tranquility, the calm, the happiness, pleasure that jhanas are naturally of that nature, that will give you that sort of assurance, is that is the ending of suffering. Yeah. And when one practices them in that way, one is already familiar with the path, because one has understood that that sort of understanding of suffering, not taking them personally, but letting them go, letting them be, and relaxing the mind and body. That is the kind of the path actually, and that path is the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah. So Noble Eightfold Path, in that phrases already we have with the right effort, and that sort of right effort is supported by the right mindfulness, because you need to be aware, otherwise you cannot practice that right effort. So that there is right mindfulness already there, right effort is supported by the right mindfulness, and right effort, right mindfulness, they do culminate in right collectedness or samma samadhi. So jhanas are the state of samma samadhi. We all know that. So that's arising of the jhanas and the ceasing of jhanas. Actually, they encapsulate the Four Noble Truth. So that's why Buddha says that one who experiences the jhanas is already on the way to experience the Nibbana. There is no way that one will not arrive at Nibbana if one practices jhana in this way. And there is a very good sutta in Anguttara Nikaya where the Buddha says that one will definitely, those disciples of the Buddha who experiences jhanas, they consider jhanas to be of that nature. That is of nature of the nature of the jhanas are, they are impermanent, they are not personal, they are impersonal, and they are nothing in our control. And that's why the disciple of the Buddha who has got some sort of understanding, the rudimentary understanding of Four Noble Truth, understand that there is nothing they can do about those jhanas, and they will let go of any sort of reaction or some sort of personalization, some sort of attachment, some sort of longing to keep those jhanas. And he compares that sort of attitude of the noble disciples to those sort of worldling who consider jhana to be some sort of state of bliss that they have kind of attained by some sort of supreme effort. They do take them as some sort of their position, and by that virtue of taking those very personal, and by releasing that sort of attitude of their attainment, that because of that sort of greed and that sort of hatred and greed and delusion for that sort of states, Buddha says that, let's say somebody has entered the first jhana, and after 500 mahakapa, that person who is not the noble disciple, who is not the follower of the Buddha, will inevitably, because of that sort of lust, because of that sort of greed, they will inevitably fall into the world of misery, the world of lower realm, so basically hell realm or some sort of. So that's how I say that those who have experienced jhanas by taking them personal, they have postponed and they have kind of their destiny is postponed by 500 mahakapas. They will experience that bliss, and they will experience the result of that sort of attitude of taking those sort of jhanas personal and taking them as a position, and that's how they fall into that trap of the karma, where they will inevitably fall into that sort of misery. And in contrast, the Buddha's disciple, as Buddha says, that one who looks at the impermanent nature of the jhanas, impersonal nature of the jhanas, and why those jhanas are nothing to be delighted in, and why those jhanas are just some sort of temporary abiding. One who sort of contemplate that sort of nature of that sort of jhanas would understand that that is also impermanent, suffering, and not self. So because of that sort of attitude, when that particular person does not progress anything beyond jhanas, they will either become arahat, they will let go of all the things, or if they cannot attain all that sort of arahatship, they will appear spontaneously in the what they call the Suddhabhasa, the pure abode, and from there they will attain Nibbana from that world without ever returning to the earth. So that's how the jhanas being explained by the Buddha this is a very, very fundamental difference, and it is quite possible that people might get confused why the Buddha is saying that somebody who experiences jhana can go to the hell realm. So that's why we need to be careful. Even with the jhanas, we need to be taking those jhanas something just as some sort of conditioned, dependently arisen phenomena. Yeah. So, and as the Buddha says that having the experience of jhana is a good way forward, and one should not be taking those as some sort of big attainment or some sort of achievement. Rather, one should let them be, let them just arise and cease, and just continue with the practice.